Among the glamorous and neon-drenched streets of GTA 5 hides a terrifying horror, a mysterious force of nature that is thirsting for blood and violence. Its name, Trevor Phillips, the true maniac of Los Santos, a man that is insane and out of control, but at the same time extremely cunning. Trevor checks all the boxes of classic serial killers and maniacs. While he might not be very good looking, he is able to show off a charming personality when he wants to. At times he can be funny, and you might even consider him a good friend. You might even feel sad for him when he has an emotional breakdown and starts crying. But make no mistake, this man is far more terrifying than most people know. Trevor behaves like a lunatic most of the time, which is why a lot of players don't pay attention to his behavior. If they did, they'd notice that behind all of this insanity is a man that knows exactly what he's doing. Trevor is self-aware. He knows what he's doing even when he's in one of his many fits of rage. He has proven to have a very good understanding of Los Santos and its surroundings, even going so far as to make friends with a sick cannibalistic cult up in the mountains to whom he occasionally delivers unsuspecting strangers. GTA 5 likes to use him as comedic relief. He's the typical crazy over-the-top character that the franchise is known for, but the truth is actually a lot darker than many realize. Trevor Phillips is a serial killer. We know that even without the game explicitly stating so. There are moments when we switch to him right as he's trying to flush a human leg that was clearly cut off. What happened to the rest of the body? Possibly buried somewhere in Blaine County, or maybe its remains are deep under the water. Trevor has admitted to killing people and doing horrible things to their bodies, be it alive or not. But even without him telling us, we know how violent he is because we control most of that violence. He is the perfect GTA protagonist because GTA players by default want to cause chaos and go on destructive rampages. And who better to be the personification of a GTA player than an insane maniac? He had a brother, Ryan, when he was young, and it is implied that something horrible happened to Ryan. Something Trevor had a hand in. He murdered his brother. Why? No one knows, and the game doesn't go all too deep into his childhood. Mr. Phillips is true evil. He is a cannibal that feasts on human flesh, a man that has killed more people than any of the other GTA characters, and quite frankly, probably more than most serial killers combined. And of course, he is also a man that performs certain acts of pleasure on his victims as well as their dead bodies. Knowing all of that, why would it be crazy to assume that he had a hand in killing 8 unsuspecting joggers? Be it as an accomplice the same way he helps the cannibal cult on Mount Chiliad, or as the true perpetrator. Serial killers often change their names or use fake names when committing crimes. This isn't even exclusive to killers, most criminals do this in order to avoid being caught. Not every serial killer wants their name to be associated with their murders, not all of them want to be famous. Knowing how cunning and self-aware Trevor can be, is it possible that he committed the Infinity Kill and used the name Merle Abrahams as an alias? He has been living in San Andreas for a while and clearly knows his way around. He made plenty of contacts and friends that could have possibly been involved or just helped him cover his tracks. Another possibility could be that Merle was indeed the killer and Trevor helped him the same way he helps the cult or other random strangers. If Trevor is willing to make friends with cannibals and eat human flesh himself, as well as torture humans for fun, why would it be out of the ordinary for him to have been involved in the Infinity killings? Out of all GTA characters, Trevor is by far the most evil and sadistic. It just so happens that he is one of the main protagonists of GTA 5 and playable. This makes him a lot more relatable and sympathetic. He clearly is well written and acted, but imagine that he was a secondary character or part of a stranger mission. How would we view him then? Almost every character that interacts with Trevor is afraid of him. Even his former best friend, Michael, a seasoned criminal and a man who's not afraid of hardcore violence himself, tries to keep his distance from Trevor. In fact, Michael fears Trevor as he knows that he could easily kill his entire family in one of his fits of rage. After all, this is exactly what happened with Floyd and Deborah, people that Trevor considered family and friends. people that he so brutally killed that the windows of their apartment were painted red. There is no concrete evidence or even any hints at Trevor being the Infinity Killer or in any way connected to him, but knowing him and what he is capable of, it's not far-fetched. If you think about it, most theories about the true identity of the Infinity Killer, aside from Merle, are crazy and wild. There are wild theories claiming the killer is a time traveler that is somehow connected to the Epsilon program. Some people claim that he's from a long bloodline that sketches back to the Wild West. Others say that he is the reincarnated soul of Edmund Lowry Jr. from Red Dead Redemption 2. Trevor is a monster, prowling the streets of Los Santos looking for his next victims. From what the game tells us, we know that Merle Abrahams is the true Infinity Killer. It's important to point out that, as far as the game is openly telling us, he did all of these killings. We know almost nothing about Merle. We know he killed people and where he hid the bodies, we know where he lived, and that he was ultimately caught and imprisoned in the Blaine County Jail. That's where he stayed until his death. At least that's what we are led to believe. However, if you've been following this mystery for a while, or maybe been trying to solve it yourself, you will know that things are a lot more complicated and deeper than they look. At least in the eyes of the GTA and Red Dead community, because every theory that exists about the Infinity Killer is just that, a theory. None of them have been confirmed or truly proven, however I believe that's what actually makes them so interesting. Rockstar Games mysteries wouldn't be half as fun if we had all the answers. An unanswered mystery is a lot more interesting than one for which we have all the answers for. In the last few years, a new theory has become quite popular. The idea that Merle was just the fall guy and that the true killer was Eddie Lowe, the serial killer from GTA 4. Eddie makes a few references during his encounter with Nico that might hint at him knowing Merle, as he does mention Mrs. Abrahams. Nothing about that woman is known, but it is possible that she was the wife or a family member of Merle. However, whether they are actually connected or not is not known. What we do know for a fact is that Eddie Lowe has a particular preference and hate for joggers. There are multiple articles in GTA 4 that do mention the disappearance of joggers, and he mentions it himself too.
Remains under siege as another body was found, this time at the Liberty Ferry Terminal in Alderney City. A decapitated jogger who was getting fit in the wrong place at the wrong time. Detective John Atkinson has been working the case.
Oh, thank God, he did it again. I was beginning to lose my media profile. We'll be making an arrest soon. How's my hair look?
The first time we encounter him, we actually unknowingly help him get rid of various body parts that he throws into the water. The Infinity Killer deleted 8 joggers himself. One possibility could be that he was actually Eddie Lowe, who used the name Merle Abrahams as a fake identity. Merle supposedly died in prison, but we know how easily it is to fake your death in the world of GTA, not to mention simply bribe someone to cover your tracks. Eddie most likely deleted a lot more people during his time in San Andreas than we know about, just like he did in Liberty City years later. Just like Trevor, Eddie killed his little brother and hid his body underwater. In fact, he ended the lives of his entire family. He's a man that is clearly capable of horrible things and a deranged maniac. But even he shows a certain level of cunning and intelligence. Serial killers are well known to be smart, cold, and calculated. Eddie shares a lot of similarities with Trevor. In fact, he might have just as easily been a potential protagonist. I wouldn't be surprised if part of the inspiration for Trevor's character came from Eddie Lowe. It is possible that both of these even interacted. Maybe Eddie did commit those murders while pretending to be Merle, and Trevor helped him do it or hide the bodies. There certainly seems to be a connection between the Abrahams family and Eddie, but whether this was intentional or a coincidence is unclear. Rockstar Games loves to include the supernatural in their games. The GTA and Red Dead games all feature creepy or mysterious events. They are unique in this aspect, as no other gaming franchise seems to handle the subject of in-game mysteries the same way. Around the map there are various locations where we can find UFOs as well as references to extraterrestrial life forms. For example, the hippie camp in Blaine County. It is full of art and symbology depicting alien life. There are glyphs that look very similar to those on the Mount Chiliad mural, but also like the paintings in the cannibal cult camp. Sometimes, above the camp, you can also encounter a hovering flying object that looks exactly like a UFO. What's more, the hippie camp is not far from Mount Chiliad and actually has a lookout spot that directly faces Chiliad and the cult. Clearly, the hippies have either some sort of knowledge that the average Los Santos citizen lacks, or this is just a big coincidence fueled by too much weed. But that's only a small part of this mystery. A mystery that goes a lot deeper than you might think. The cannibals have the same symbols on their houses as the hippies on the mural and the Chiliad mural. From what we know, the cult is made up of a bunch of crazy and insane people that on occasion work together with Trevor. You can deliver unsuspecting strangers for the cult to either eat or do other things. But what? Yeah, sure, they are cannibals, but they also clearly believe in a higher power. What if they perform sacrifices to this power? I mean, it wouldn't be too hard to imagine, and cults are known to perform insane rituals. This cult, the Ultras, also has a cave directly beneath their headquarters. This cave is full of religious symbology that also depicts something otherworldly, along with phrases such as praise him or he is risen. The Ultras are most likely inspired or a reference to Heaven's Gate, a real-life cult that believed that followers could transform themselves into immortal extraterrestrial beings by rejecting their human nature, and they would ascend to heaven, referred to as the next level or the evolutionary level above human. The Ultras in GTA 5 are also located on the highest mountain in the game, which overlooks a large part of the map. This could also tie into them seeing each other as above everyone else and close to the heavens. Now here's where this gets even more interesting, complex, and deeper. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you can find a shack that is full of skeletons. These people were clearly religious, as seen by the robes their leader was wearing. It is also obvious that they all committed mass deletion. In fact, this is a strong reference to the mass deletion of Heaven's Gate. If you stay in this shack till it's dark, you can see a creepy green light illuminated coming from a flying object above you. This object looks like a UFO. Whatever this cult was, they clearly believed and maybe even knew about the existence of aliens or higher powers. It is possible that they sacrificed themselves or were actually killed by something else, something otherworldly. We don't know for sure. Most likely, the beliefs that this cult held are connected to the ones of the Ultras. They might not be the same, but there are far too many similarities. Something supernatural or otherworldly is going on here, which connects the worlds of GTA and Red Dead. One such thing is the time traveling. We know that time travel is a thing in Red Dead 2 and hinted at in GTA 5. In Red Dead Redemption 2, it is possible to meet a man called Francis Sinclair. He talks and is dressed like a man from the 1920s and makes you hunt for 10 rock carvings. Most of these carvings depict futuristic events that will happen long after the time Red Dead 2 takes place. One of them shows human DNA. Inside of the house where we meet Francis, we can also find another mural that shows how he is jumping through time and visiting different decades. Him being a time traveler is not a theory but a proven fact. The Epsilon program from GTA, as crazy as they sound, does seem to have a certain higher knowledge or power. Francis Sinclair is connected to this cult as he seems to somehow be connected to a deity the Epsilon program worships called Kraft. Maybe he is a reincarnation of that deity or possessed by it. We don't really know. Francis and the cult both seem to be fascinated by certain things for unknown reasons. Francis asks you to find 10 rock carvings, but he does not mention for what purpose. The Epsilon program sends you on various missions that seemingly lead to nothing. Whatever Francis and Epsilon are looking for might be the same as what the Ultras look for. It might be an important factor that connects back to the Chiliad mural, the Doomsday mural, and interestingly enough, the Infinity Killer. There are a lot of theories about the Infinity Killer and his true identity. A lot of people in the community believe that Merle Abrahams, the man convicted for these crimes, was actually either framed or an accomplice or involved in some other way. But who he really was doesn't really matter in relation to the bigger picture here. You see, the Infinity Killer killed 8 people because he was obsessed with the number 8. At least that's what we are told by the game. It is absolutely possible that he actually killed a lot more. In his house, you can find human or maybe even alien remains stuffed in jars. There are also bloody writings on the walls. One says there will be 8, another 8 is just infinity stood up. Not far from his house, you can also find a formation of rocks that has a nursery rhyme written on it, surrounded by 8s or the infinity symbol, most likely by the killer. 1 is done, 2 was fun, 3 tried to run, 4 called mom, 5's not alive, 6 is Nick's, 7's in heaven, 8 won't wait. There is another message to be found in the prison where the supposed killer was held, saying, "Where water meets land and fire once spewed forth, there the infinite 8 shall stay until I return." We know where these bodies are located, at the very top of the map, not far from Mount Chiliad. Now, there's a few interesting things worth mentioning here. First of all, he said it himself. 8 is just infinity stood up. People assume that his obsession was with the number 8 rather than with infinity. It is possible that he actually was obsessed with infinity and therefore potentially immortality. Because if we assume that he wanted to be part of infinity, he'd be immortal. These killings that he performed might have been more ritualistic in nature. Rather than him just being a typical serial killer, he could have had a much bigger goal in mind. Maybe these killings had a certain effect or were used to fuel a higher power. They could have been necessary to enable time travel and therefore enable him to disappear and go to a different decade. This also would connect him even closer to Edmund Lowry Jr. I understand how insane all of this sounds, but I'm not done yet. If you visit the place where the infinite 8 are hidden and swim a slight bit to the right, you can find a sunken UFO. All this is also almost directly beneath Mount Chiliad and not far from the altruist camp. Is this really such a massive coincidence that the victims of the Infinity Killer are located next to a UFO in one of the most mysterious locations in the entire game? Even more interesting is the Doomsday mural that features various symbols, among them UFOs, Bigfoot, the infinity sign, and the DNA symbol. If you remember in Red Dead 2, one of the rock carvings we had to find for Francis also included a DNA symbol. What if its actual meaning is telling us how to contact the aliens or higher powers presented here? All of these killings and mass deletions might also have been necessary in order to serve a bigger goal. It is possible that the strangers Trevor delivers to the altruists are also in part being used as sacrifices or even directly given to the aliens to be abducted. The Infinity Killer said that the Infinite 8 will remain where he hid them until he returns. But returns from where? He was sentenced to life in prison, so it is unlikely he would have gotten out, unless he wasn't actually present in the prison but rather somewhere else. Maybe somewhere that is either not located on Earth or in a different decade.